Today on With the First Pick, we'll take a look back at some risers and fallers from the Shrine Bowl and Senior Bowl. But first, it's Super Bowl week, which means we're going to take a deep dive into how the Chiefs and Eagles were built either through the draft or free agency. Since, got our own GM on the show here, a guy with more than 30 years NFL experience, more than a decade as a Vikings general manager, who was on the hiring committee for the Commanders a year ago, and the Jets this cycle. So just shut in the dark here, Rick. Maybe you have some insights on how you might want to construct a winning roster.
I'll give it a shot. We can kind of go through both Howie and Howie Roseman, Brett Veach did a phenomenal job and kind of looking into the deep dive on how they put these rosters together but how important it is to make sure you're hitting on these draft picks, because the draft picks are the foundation for both of these organizations. That's why they are in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well said. But first, we got to start things off with everyone's favorite segment, Overreactions. It'll be an abbreviated version, but I think a good one. I'm Ryan Wilson. That's Rick Spielman. This is episode 220, Rick. We did 5 while we were on the RV tour with the first pick. And before we get going, how many days to the 2025 NFL draft?
Yeah, well, Ryan Wilson, there's not enough days left into the 2025 NFL draft. Just piles and piles of work ahead of us. But if the people out there listening would like to know, there are only 79 days. Hey, Claire, there are only 79 days left. Our producer, Claire, was wondering what that was till the 2025 NFL draft.
Claire's with us today. I don't know if Debo's on the way to the Super Bowl to watch the Eagles lose another Super Bowl and pay his hard-earned money for that, or if he's just doing ivory tower things. But the lovely Claire's here. We're happy to have Claire. All right. Let's get this thing going with the old overreactions, Rick.
I don't even know what the overreactions are going to be this week since there are no games. So I'm anxious.
No games.
To hear these overreactions.
It's just one, but it's a doozy.
Ugh.
And of course, you don't know what it is. We laid out for you in real time. Get your reactions. Let's start. The one, the only, future Hall of Famer Myles Garrett says, "Peace out to Cleveland." Cleveland said last, as Rick flashes the Tyreek sign, if you're listening, go to YouTube to see. That's the
peace sign, isn't it?
Yeah, but Tyreek does that when he's sprinting to the end zone pass.
Oh, okay.
Defensive backs who have no chance to catch him, then he gets flagged for it. But, Myles gave the Tyreek sign to Cleveland. Cleveland said, even before he made this announcement, that they weren't going to trade him. I think they've doubled down on that. But if the best player in the organization, the best player in the last decade for that team wants out, what are you doing, Rick?
Well, he's the integral part of their defense. Maybe the best, if not defensive player of the year again this year. He's a phenomenal football player. They're going to have to buck up for a new contract. I know I try to relate it to some of the situations that I was in where a player came in and requested a trade, and I said, "You're not going anywhere. The only way that you're going to get traded is the only way that I would even consider that is if someone's going to give me a significant amount of draft compensation. So if you think you're going to get out for a 4th-round pick that moves to a 3rd-round pick, that ain't happening."
Mm-mm.
Now, if someone's offering me multiple picks and maybe multiple 1st-round picks for Myles Garrett, we'll go ahead and I'll talk with our ownership. We'll kind of take it from there. But to say we're just going to give you away, in order for us to even entertain that, not that we even want to entertain that, but if we do entertain it, it's going to be probably multiple 1st-round picks for you, at least, before we even consider it.
So in a perfect world, if you were to move up from Miles Davis, I think Miles Davis, that would be awesome. Myles Garrett.
Was Miles Davis a great jazz musician?
He, in fact, is. Played the trumpet, if I recall correctly. So I couldn't have been more wrong in my Mileses. But Myles Garrett, if you move up from Myles Garrett, 2 1st-round picks, best case scenario. What do you think about this? So you get 2 1st-round picks for Myles. Yay, you moved on. There's going to be some salary cap implications. We're not going to concern ourselves with those. I would consider trading out of number 2 as well, especially if Shador isn't interested in Cleveland or you're not crazy about Shador, whatever. I would trade down from 2 and just start over, stockpile picks, and reset. What do you think about that?
Those are all the things you have to talk about. Now, if there's a significant play there, if they're that in love with Cam Ward or, Tennessee's coming out saying we're going to take the most unique player, quote, in the draft. and is that Cam Ward? Is that Shadir Sanders? I don't think they're unique. I think Travis Hunter's unique. I think a couple other of these defensive guys are unique, but to put those quarterbacks in that unique category, I don't know if I would do that. So let's say, and you're going to talk about this scenario. Let's say all of a sudden Tennessee decides to not take a quarterback and they take a Travis Hunter as the number 1 overall pick. Now, does that change your mind on, let's say you like Ward over Sanders, or you got the pick of the one that you like the most, or you're in love with the most? Then it's the best of both worlds. I can get multiple first-round picks this year and next year. I can get the quarterback that we coveted all in one sweep. Then that would be a home run for the Cleveland Browns if that's the way they felt.
The other thing is this, and just a quick look at some teams that might be interested in edge rushers. The Falcons, of course, they drafted Braylon Trice, but he missed the season with an injury. Your Detroit Lions, the Chicago Bears, maybe even the Packers. Colts could be on that list as well. If you're any of those GMs, and Rick, you're the GM for the Browns, and you want 2 first-round picks, I'm going to come back and say, look, man, this draft class is so incredibly deep along the defensive line. I'm not giving you.
We'll keep our guy. You take whatever the hell you want. That's
Okay.
what I'm going to tell you.
Yeah, but I know, and you know both that Myles does not want to be there. So it's just
That's fine. Yeah, then we'll stay. Yeah, I don't care. Okay.
Okay.
I've got a future Hall of Famer, and you're trying to tell me that Bobby Bag of Donuts, the pass rusher coming out this year, is going to be Myles Garrett? Come on.
I was texting with my Browns buddy, who's even as a Browns fan with the understanding of how things usually go terribly wrong, he was shocked by this. And I said, if you get 65% of the production out of whoever you draft, that's okay. I mean, that's realistic compared to what Myles Garrett would give you. You're not getting 100%, but if you get 65% out of a dual Carter, I'm not giving you 2 first-round picks.
Well, then good. Then we're not having a deal. And then
all right, I read this in The Athletic, so check this. Check it out if you want to see more. They did a bunch of draft scenarios. I'll just throw one by you, and this is the Detroit Lions. I sort of like this one because it helps the Lions clearly with Myles Garrett, but it also gives the Browns some hope. So the Browns get, according to this Athletic article, 2025 first-round pick, which is number 28, a third-round pick, a 2026 first-round pick, and Hendon Hooker. And then the Lions get Garrett in the 4th-round pick.
Yeah, I don't know why Cleveland would do that, but
is that too much or not enough if you're Cleveland?
Well, I mean, you're getting a first-round pick, so what I'm guessing is this year I would have 2. Then I'd have the 2nd overall pick and number 28 is what you said.
Number 28. Then next year's 2nd-round pick and a 3rd-round pick this year. And
why not? Yeah, I would need next year's first-round pick because if Cleveland is
it's in there. 2026 first-rounder as well.
So you're guessing that potentially, as we look at paper right now, that could potentially be another top 5 pick. So
yeah, very much so.
So that would be very, very interesting.
Yeah. And Hendon Hooker, we haven't seen what he's done yet. He had the ACL coming out his last year at Tennessee. He got a few reps.
The only thing I would say, I'm going to counter you back just so, because now you're starting to irritate me like you normally do within the first 10 minutes of the show.
What'd I do?
You're throwing me Hendon Hooker, right? So I'm coming back at you. And you're trying to tell me how good he is and how he's progressed. That's great. Then why did you sign Teddy Bridgewater after he won a state championship as a high school coach and had him as your backup instead of Hendon Hooker if you were so high on Hendon Hooker? I'm asking you that.
Because Teddy is a fantastic story and it's heartwarming, and Teddy deserved it.
I'm glad that we're GMs that are in heartwarming stories. That'll keep you in a job for about – yeah.
That's a great way to get on a podcast.
Yeah, that's a great way to end up doing what I'm doing.
You didn't do that. I mean, Teddy got hurt, and obviously you drafted Teddy, and Teddy was a great young man, fine young man. That was a fun story. We didn't get a chance to talk to you about that because you're doing the Jet stuff. But the Hendon Hooker thing, that's a fair question. But I was happy to see Teddy come out there and get on the field. And
that's an incredible story, isn't it? High school coach, retired, wins a state championship his first year as a high school coach, and then by the way, I'm going to go up and play for the Detroit Lions after the season.
Does that give you any credibility with the high school kids?
No.
He's gonna roll out of bed and play starting quarterback.
Yeah, and then one of the freshman kids, hey mom, that's our high school coach. Yeah, right there, Johnny.
Yeah. Go cut the grass, Johnny.
Yeah,
That's enough.
yeah, whatever, Johnny.
All right, so let's get a prediction here. Myles Garrett, where is he in Cleveland in September 2025?
Unless it's something that is outrageously rich in draft selections, which those 2 first-round picks plus would make it intriguing. I'm going through the little bit of the scenario. We went with Stephon Diggs, is what I was putting myself in that situation, unless I get the true value of what I think the player is. And if he's a number 1 receiver for you, this is the going rate. And here are the trades in the past that show what that trade value is. We did it when I traded Percy Harvin to Seattle way back in the day. So there's a market out there, too, for what it would cost, especially a future. And I'm not saying Diggs is a future Hall of Famer or Percy Harvin was. Myles Garrett's a future Hall of Famer. And, we went through the same thing when we traded for Jared Allen, who ended up being a great player for us. So there's some precedent out there on, what the trade value is on those guys. But, yeah, if you're going to come at me and say, there's a lot of great edge rushers out there, I don't know. I was like, okay, whatever. But must be the first year on a job as a GM.
I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If Myles is agent,
is this going to irritate me? Is this really?
No? I'm going to play both roles. You just sit there and listen. You can be producer Rick with producer Claire for a second. I'll be both.
Claire, scoot over. Can I share a seat with you?
Ryan says, "What if the agent tells you, Rick, that his player is going to sit out?" Rick's response is, "I do not care. He's under contract." Is that right?
Yes. Good answer.
Okay. So even if Myles is going to make noise, you don't care.
No, that's all part of the posturing.
I'm not saying Myles will. He seems like an upstanding young man and has helped a community and so on and so forth. But
now you may not see him until the beginning of the season, or you're going to pay him very handsomely. Why wouldn't I take this deal?
Right. Man, okay. That's it for overreactions. Let's take a quick break. Let Rick get an opportunity to regroup, and then we're going to look at 5 moves that led the Eagles and Chiefs to Super Bowl 59 right after this.
Gives it to Jenkins for the championship. A 16 beats a 1. From sweet to elite to the Final Four.
All right, Rick, your dogs are excited about this segment.
No, they're excited about it. You wanted to trade Myles Garrett for a 4th-round pick. They're saying, Dad, whatever you do, take him.
4th round. They're big Myles. They love Myles Garrett and Miles Davis, so I can appreciate that. All right, let's talk about this. These 2 Super Bowl teams here. Super Bowl 59, Phillies and Kansas City. I mean, it's obvious what the biggest offseason move was for both teams. So I'll just give you some fun facts before we get going here. I went and looked at their rosters. For the Eagles, 50% of their picks are day 1, day 2. Currently on the roster, the other half are day 3 guys, so they have a balance there. And pretty much the same thing for the Chiefs. The Chiefs have more day 2 guys than the Eagles do, but it balances out to 50-50 day 1, day 2 versus day 3. So there's balance there. I think you gave the stat on HQ, around 53-ish, 55-ish% of these players are homegrown players. I don't know how that measures up with the rest of the league, but it feels like they keep a lot of their guys that they want, and they re-up the guys that obviously have been great on those rookie deals.
Yeah, no, that's the combination you're looking for. 50 to 60% of your roster are homegrown. And those are the guys that you want to extend and supplement it with the trade and free agency. And both of these, Brett Veach and Howie Roseman, done a phenomenal job drafting and then filling in and making some big-time moves to get them to probably where they're at today in the Super Bowl.
So Saquon Barkley is the obvious choice, but I went and looked at the most impactful players, and you can use whatever measure you want. I was using Pro Football References approximate value, and again, take it for what it's worth, but just an indication of a guy who's making an impact. Saquon was tied with Zach Bond, who was originally drafted by the Saints as being incredibly impactful. Zach Bond plays on defense, of course. He moved to off ball after undersized as an edge. And two of their top three impactful players this season were Saquon and Zach Bond, and then, of course, Jalen Hurts. I think that speaks to how good Howie Roseman is at finding these guys. Saquon, I could have signed him. But finding a way to get Zach Bond and Vic Fangio's system and do what he does well also speaks to that.
Yeah, he was, I believe he came out of Wisconsin, if I go through my Rolodex, and very instinctive. He did play off the ball linebacker there. You know, they may have, you know, whatever they did in New Orleans, but then I'm sitting there and I'm in New Orleans and said, this guy went, I think he was an all-pro this year, maybe the best cover linebacker in the league right now, and the impact he had. But those are meetings when you're going into these free agency meetings. And Vic Fangio probably had a lot to say. Give me this Zach Bond. I know what his value is, and I know how he's going to fit in our scheme. So let's go and get him. And they hit it's almost like Van Noy in Baltimore, where they found him and he was okay in New England, but he wasn't the Van Noy we're seeing in Baltimore. So it's not only the player, but these coaching staffs that are helping the general manager identify these guys and identifying this guy does something very, very well, and it's going to really be emphasized in the scheme that we're running.
Would the Eagles be where they are without Saquon? They just signed a average back?
I think they would have been where they were last year. I mean, they might have been better on defense, but Saquon was that big of a difference maker. And, you can go with the rest of the mainstream media and say, well, he's a running back, you and Pete Prisco and everyone else out there. We don't do that with running backs, but they're not the number one rushing offense in the league without Saquon Barkley. They have a good offensive line. I understand Jalen Hurts can make plays with his legs, but they're not in the Super Bowl if you're asking Jalen Hurts to throw the ball 40, 50 times a game. That's not happening.
Right. No, that's fair. And Zach Bond has been a fun story too. I would imagine the Eagles would be closer to where they are now without Zach Bond as opposed to without Saquon Barkley, even though they both have been impactful. Just in terms of the three highest rated players on the other side of the ball, just in terms of the approximate value by PFR, Chris Jones, Patrick Mahomes, Creed Humphrey. Those are all three homegrown guys, obviously play three very different positions. Creed Humphrey's probably been relied on more now than previously because the offensive line's been in flux, especially the tackle position. But we know how good Chris Jones is play in and play out when he's healthy. I think people know that Patrick Mahomes is still a big deal, but maybe not. By the way, speaking of a big deal, did you know that Luka Doncic had changed teams? Because I literally did not know that.
Yeah, I did. I actually have something on this. It's amazing, this invention here.
What happened?
What happens is if you put it on alerts and something big happens in major sports, it'll actually alert you that something's going on. So even though this is a draft podcast, but all of a sudden my phone's pinging and I'm like, oh, what happened? And I got the news that the Lakers made a big trade. So yes, I was aware of it. I don't live in a bubble.
Claire, I'm locked into the draft.
I live on an island, not a bubble.
You do live on an island. That's true. By the way, the 79 days thing, I forgot to make the crack that when you take 2 months off to go help the Jets better their organization and you don't look at players, you got a lot of work to do, buddy.
We need to put a 1 where that 0 is. There's 179 days left until the 2025 NFL draft.
The draft's going to be in late August this year if you do the math. All right, the other thing I had on the list, signing Saquon was number one for me in terms of 5 moves that led to us getting to this point. Number 2, staying with the Eagles, Fangio and Kellen Moore, the new defensive and offensive coordinator. New old. They've been around the block. Vic Fangio is a little older than Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore, I don't think he's 40 years old yet. But
any prediction that Kellen Moore may be the next New Orleans head coach?
I did see this headline that the Saints said they weren't talking to other candidates, or they told the candidates were good and they're going to wait for Kellen Moore. It is interesting though. Clint Kubiak is now. He might be in Seattle now. I can't remember. He was the OC.
He's the offensive coordinator in Seattle. now.
Yeah, so we spent the first 3 weeks talking about how Clint Kubiak could crack the code. I think they beat the 49ers, which is hard to wrap our brains around in retrospect. And then things went off the rails there, not because of Clint Kubiak, just everything. The quarterback got hurt. There are injuries everywhere. And just goes to show you that it's a week-to-week league, man. So, yeah, I don't hate the idea of Kellen Moore there. I think he's proven himself. He had some buzz when he was with Dallas, and then as most things do, when you stay at Dallas too long, the buzz goes away. But I think he and Vic Fangio were the exact right fit after last year they struggled to get the OC and DC right.
Yeah, and if you look at, I just had some stats here. Vic Fangio's defense, #1 in total defense, second in scoring defense, first in pass defense, and we'll talk to some of the rookies that made an impact there. Third in third down defense, fifth in red zone defense, first in yards per play. So night and day, they were at the bottom of the league last year. So this system and how they built it with the additions and acquisitions that they made was a perfect storm for Vic Fangio, because he did not have that same type of success down in Miami as he's had in Philadelphia. And then the only thing that really sticks out to me about Kellen Moore, and I don't know if you remember this a couple years ago, where when he was let go by Mike McCarthy down in Dallas, Mike says, well, we let him go because we need to run the ball more.
Right.
Well, they run the ball the same amount of time, and Kellen Moore here has #1 rushing offense. Now, a lot of that has to do with Saquon Barkley and maybe the offensive line that they have, but they're 8th in total offense, 7th in scoring offense, #1 in rushing offense. So that theory kind of went out the door, that Kellen Moore just wants to pass the ball all the time.
Right, exactly. And it's funny you mentioned the offensive line, because the highest rated player in terms of being a day 3 pick for both teams is Jordan Mailata, the left tackle, former 7th round pick, developmental guy. And sometimes you might hit on that guy 2% of the time, but when you do, you get a Jordan Mailata out of it. I just wanted to mention that. You're talking about the offensive line.
Well, just let's go over to the Kansas City side.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at that 2022 draft. You got
that was a pretty good one.
Karlaftis, Brian Cook, starting safety. Pacheco was a 7th rounder. Nazeeh Johnson was a 7th rounder. Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, Leo Chanel, all those guys were mostly Saturday picks. So you talk about a Brett Veach hitting on all those players, and especially on Saturday, that became significant players for that Kansas City defense. And then you throw in Pacheco as a cherry on top. That's a pretty good draft too, of hitting it not only in the 1st round but through the 7th round as well.
They have 3 guys drafted in the 7th round of that draft class that had significant playing time this year and prior years when Pacheco was healthy. And it's one thing to say running backs in the 7th round, whatever, you can have that conversation, but 2 of them are cornerbacks, and they play outside.
Yeah, and stats tell you that the only way you get significant corners is in the 1st or 2nd rounds.
Right. So that's insane. So well done, Brett Veach and Andy Reid and the scouting department for sure. So, I mean, the other comeback is we've talked about the Philly draft class from 2024 and how that's an A+. The A+ for the Chiefs for 2022. The 2023 class in KC, they had Felix is his name. Enrique Uzama, and he's been a situational guy. Rashee Rice is good when he's healthy. He hasn't been healthy. Wanya Morris has struggled to get on the field at the tackle position. And then Shamari Connor plays a good bit. And then this year's draft class, they have Xavier Worthy, and that's about it. Jaden Hicks plays a little bit, the safety out of Washington State, but not a ton. But I think the lesson is there. If you hit a grand slam on just about every pick in 2022, you can have a few drafts where you're not hitting on 80% of the picks. And this year, the Eagles in 2024, and even last year, man, 2023, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, those 2 guys, Jordan Davis the year before that, Cam Jurgens is playing a lot, Nakobe Dean was playing a lot before he got hurt in 2022. These are 2 of the best drafting teams, and it sort of shows, if you get the franchise quarterback, it makes the other stuff easy, but you got to draft around them.
Yeah, no, they've done phenomenal. Now, again, if you got a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, and if you look at Kansas City, give credit to Brett Veach because he's just knocked it out of the park drafting. But how many times with Patrick Mahomes, when it comes, even though they may not have the numbers on offense, but does that dude know how to win games or what, especially in crunch time? And, you pair it with the Kelseys of the world and some of the vets there, and that's just a recipe for success. And the same thing on Howie Roseman's side in the Philadelphia Eagles. At the last two drafts, I thought they really, really hit some home runs there. And their secondary goes from 30th to 1st in pass because, in my opinion, they upgraded Slay, even though Slay still in Bradbury, with Cooper DeJean coming in, and Quinyon Mitchell. That made a significant difference.
Right. The other thing that made a difference going to the, and I put this down as number 4 on my list, Howie crushing recent drafts was number 3, and we just sort of talked about that. The issue when the Chiefs lost the Super Bowl to the Buccaneers and Tom Brady a few years ago is that the offensive line was in shambles, and they went out and addressed that. Left tackle position is still a big question mark. I think the signing of Joe Thuney might end up being critical to their success because he's moved out to left tackle. Kyle Long, who played with the Chiefs for at least one season towards the end of his career, thought that Joe Thuney was the best left tackle on that team at the time, and that's where he is now. Kelly Indo's playing guard. So that seems to be duct tape holding it together. But if they win this game, it could be because of Joe Thuney's ability to sort of fight off all these edge rushers they have coming off for Philadelphia. So I'm going to make that as an underrated signing from a few years ago when they got Thuney from the Patriots.
And they paid a lot of money for him, and New England elected not to sign him. And he got that big contract, but he can play center, he can play guard. Now he's showing his versatility to go out there and play left tackle. I'm not saying who is the guard tackle from Ohio State this year.
Donovan Jackson.
I'm not saying he's Thuney, but that just shows you when guys can play multiple positions like that and they can play at a high level, at the NFL level, how valuable they truly are.
Yeah, Joe Thuney's trying to be like Gray Zabel out here.
My man Gray.
Your man Gray.
Got $1 bet. He's going to go in the first round.
I stole your idea. I had to do a mock draft yesterday, Monday, on CBS Sports. A post All-Star Game mock draft. I had Gray going in the first round.
You did?
I gave you credit.
Oh.
I didn't have Jackson Dart, though. That's the bridge too far for me. The only other move I had,
you never know in that bottom of the first. We'll see how the pre-draft process goes. It's not.
We got 79 days to sort it out. I wouldn't mind going to the Ole Miss Pro Day because they have 700 guys on defense too, so we could double up. They got Trey. What's his name? Wells, the wide receiver. He transferred from South Carolina. He's there as well. So we got some guys. They got the Prescorn, the tight end. That team should have gone undefeated. That's a conversation for another time. In terms of the fifth move that I had that led the Eagles and Chiefs to the Super Bowl, and this is a layup, and you can add your own if you have any other you want to add to the top 5. I mean, Mahomes and Andy Reid solve a lot of problems. If you don't have those two guys, this team is probably a 500 team. So, yeah, we get it. But I just wanted to put that on there because it's obvious. And I think –
oh, look, you read the script. It says Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and then in parentheses, duh. Claire, did you put that in there?
No, that was all Ryan.
Duh.
Claire's celebrating the Bears appearing to get things right with the coaching hire and the moves they're making there.
Don't put the cart before the horse quite yet.
Rick, quick overreactions addendum. How do you think Ben Johnson will do in year 1?
I think he'll do well. I think that he'll have that quarterback playing as a number 1 overall pick. You said he was a bust. Everybody hates the kid, Caleb Williams, but I still say hold your horses, Claire. Don't put the cart before the horse. But Caleb Williams is going to be your quarterback. You're going to be very excited, especially with Ben Johnson's tutelage.
Yeah. Antoine Randall, former Steeler, was named the wide receivers coach. He's coming over from Detroit as well. So what the Lions need to do is skip what happened to the Eagles in a post-Shane Steichen, Jonathan Gannon world and get right to Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore with their replacements to make sure they don't have a dip in their production. And that's the toughest part. The brain drain, I think is what they call it. Do you have any numbers, anything you want to add to this top 5 list here?
No, I just, I was looking at a couple of critical matchups in this game.
Let's hear them.
Before we go on to the All-Star games. How about, and it's like star on star. Like you mentioned Creed Humphrey. and he's going to him
Ooh.
and Jalen Carter. Is that going to be a fun matchup to watch?
Not if you're Creed Humphrey.
Yeah.
My goodness.
And like McDuffie, who to me is the best corner, and I don't know if you agree, but I thought he is one of the best, if not the best corners in the league. His matchup with A.J. Brown, are they going to have him follow A.J., or are they going to – you still got Devontae Smith? It's going to be an interesting chess match on how that matchup occurs. So, and then Bond, the linebacker we just talked about from New Orleans, him and Mr. Kelsey matchup and how that's going to play out. So there are a lot of just looking as you went through the depth charts and we talked about how they built their rosters. I was kind of interested to see where the critical matchups, and those three kind of really popped out to me because they're all-star on all-star, which could be the difference in this game.
Yeah, you mentioned Creed Humphrey against Jalen Carter. And then I mentioned a moment ago, Joe Tooney, if he's at left tackle, he's going to have some dudes coming at him. And Brandon Graham might be there, who you've comped to David Walker out of Central Arkansas at the Senior Bowl. So that'll be something we'll be talking about. And I think that, I mean, look, you don't have to be a rocket surgeon to figure this out, but I think if you're Vic Fangio, excuse me, you like that one?
Hey, Claire, what is a rocket surgeon? Can you explain that to me? Huh?
I combined them. Rocket science.
Claire, help me out here. What is a rocket surgeon?
No.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, that was in my head, too, when he said that.
Yeah, combined them. That's a little joke. I thought you got the joke. I guess not.
No one got the joke.
You're not
I'm funny. You're not funny.
You're not a rocket surgeon. You had to be a rocket surgeon to get that one. But I was going to say, Steve Spagnuolo, his concern is Saquon, and that's it. Like, if Jalen beats you with his arm, congrats to Jalen. You take for half.
Just remember, in that last Super Bowl that they played each other, before CBS didn't let me do anything else but the podcast, I was actually at that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And Jalen Hurst rushed for, I believe, 70-some yards, and that was a significance in the game. If they'd have won, Jalen Hurst played lights out, throwing the ball, and also hurting them with their legs. So if you take away Barkley, which has got to be the main focus of that defense, then you better have a plan if Hurts starts running up and down the field.
I agree with that. There's something I was going to ask you. I don't remember what it was now. Who's going to win? I'll ask you that.
I'm not a rocket surgeon, so I can't quite figure that out. I'm going to go. I'm going to go with Debo's Philly. I'm going to say that they can't three-peat. Debo's Philly comes out on top.
Yeah, Debo deserves a break. He's after spending thousands of dollars to sit in the stands and watch that last beatdown. Oh, it wasn't a beatdown, last loss.
And Penn State went down. Very successful teams Debo supports, but they haven't got to the ultimate goal. That's why, like me, I never got to the ultimate goal. Close a few times, but I'm on a podcast and Debo produces podcasts.
Now you're doing, it's a cautionary tale of nothing else. By the way, my 13-year-old asked me when I got home the other day from traveling, told me he wanted to start a YouTube channel. I said, all right. There's no money in it, just so you know.
Yeah, maybe you can shoot it out of the old with the first pick RV now that it's back in your driveway.
Out of the RV for sure. By the way, I should have mentioned this at the top. Now that Rick is back here doing some homework, we're going to get to these 5-star reviews because we had to put those on the back burner for a minute. And then 20 days from now, we're going to be in Indianapolis, Rick, for the Combine. So we got a lot to do, and as Rick noted, a little time to do it in because he's been on vacation for 2 months living his best life. Back at it, Rick. No rest for the weary. All right, Claire, I think we actually mushed 2 segments into one. So if you're ready, I think we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll take a look back at the old Shrine Bowl and Senior Bowl, talk about some guys that had really good weeks and maybe some guys that got 79 days to prove us wrong. Pick it up. That's right. All right, we'll talk about that right after this. All right, Rick, biggest risers and fallers from the Shrine and Senior Bowls. Unfortunately, you weren't there for the Shrine Bowl. Next year, hopefully we can make that happen. But my guy, Cal McCord, I've talked about him enough where people are tired of him to talk about him. This is going to be my Spencer Rattler.
Oh, my God.
I don't think Debo put it out yet on YouTube, but I had an opportunity to sit down with him for a few minutes, so that'll be out there. But I thought the way he played at the Shrine Bowl practices just was pretty much what we saw during the fall. His teammate Jackson Meeks, the wide receiver, had a really good week as well. I thought he was more of a possession receiver watching him at Syracuse. He was a Georgia transfer. He had 2 national titles by the time he made his way to the Cuse. And he showed a little more ability to separate during those practices and maybe go back and think about perhaps bumping him up a little bit. And then finally, Kansas cornerback Kobe Bryant. I think he was 171, Rick, when he weighed in there, which meant he drank probably 2 gallons of water. He probably plays at 165 or something, if I had to guess. My man plays with an edge. And Emmanuel Forbes comps are going to be unfortunate for him. But I think he's probably worked himself into day 2, maybe late day 2 because of the size. But I don't think he has an injury history despite being undersized. But I love talking to him, and I love watching him play because he will knock your head off. He had a good practice week as well.
Who was how big was Sanders still last year? He was thicker, though.
Yeah, let's see what Mikey was.
He was like 185, maybe. 171 is going to be concerning.
Right. No, I get it. Mikey Sainristil was 5'9.5", 182.
Okay.
But he's a little shorter. Kobe's a little taller.
Yeah, he plays bigger than his size, though.
Absolutely.
But $160 and $120 is a significant difference. In the NFL.
By the way, quickly, and we can talk about risers. Excuse me, in the Senior Bowl. Go ahead and go over there. Tez Johnson is the guy that everyone loved. Rick, you compared him to Tank Dell. Tank weighed 165 coming out. I went and looked. The only people that weighed 156 going back to 2010 that had relatively successful, NFL careers, Tutu Atwell and Kevontae Turpin. So that's also a concern. But Tez Johnson, it's hard to argue with what he put on tape in the 3 practice days.
No, and I don't know if those other 2 guys were as quick twitched into and out of their cuts and as defined of route runners as because I remember Tutu Atwell coming out of Louisville, if I recall, and the speed was definitely there. And everybody thought he may be more gadgety, but Tez Johnson to me is as smooth of a route runner as I've seen since we talked about the Tank Dell comparison, and his ability once he gets the ball in his hands, where those other 2 guys may have been looked at more as gadget type guys. This guy is a very, very good receiver, very polished routes. No one can cover him one-on-one. Will he get broken up in the NFL? It's yet to be seen, but I don't even know what Devontae Smith was when he came out of Alabama, but that was a significant concern too. And his weight, I think he might have been in the 160s as well.
Devontae was 6'0", 170 at the combine, so he also had to stop at the water fountain before he got on the scale. So I think Bryce weighed 198 or something, maybe 202. 202. And let's be real. Bryce is going to weigh 202 when he ends up in a wheelchair 60 years from now. No, under any other circumstance, he's 165, 170.
It's 202. But the point is, there are exceptions. It's official, 202.
202, it's official. There are exceptions, but as you have noted, there's a reason you have an analytics department, because you might fall in love with someone. If they weigh 128 pounds, they're probably not going to be successful in the NFL. So, Tez Johnson, day 2?
I think someone will take a swing at him.
Yeah.
Day 2.
I'm okay with that. All right, some other guys that I had on the list, and you can certainly add to this list. Your guy, Gray Zabel, you loved him, the left tackle at North Dakota State, who in previous years had played inside and even took some snaps at center, I think, in 2022. He did all his work on the inside guard and center at the Senior Bowl, and he looked like he'd been doing it his whole life. I'll mention the names, Rick, and you can go back and touch on whoever you like or add names as well. Femi Oladejo, the new
O2 Joe,
the newish edge rusher for UCLA. He had played off ball for a long time, and then he decided to play edge this year and looked like he'd been doing it his whole life. That guy's high energy. Rick and I talked about it, I think, on the podcast last week. Interviewed him at 6:45 in the morning, and he'd been up for a while, it felt like.
He was ready to roll.
He was ready to go. I don't know if you had a chance to watch any of the Senior Bowl on Saturday, Rick, but Jack Besh won MVP.
Yeah.
Had the game-winning touchdown on a throw from our guy Seth Finnegan, I believe, if I recall correctly.
Yep, the Memphis quarterback.
And that was a punctuation mark on a great week for him. Obviously, the family tragedy when his brother was killed in New Orleans on January 1st is hard to wrap your brain around, but I love the way the kid played coming into the week, and he only solidified that with his effort through the course of the week of the Senior Bowl. And then finally, Jackson Dart, you mentioned him earlier, had a pretty good week down there. There's a battle for QB3. Jalen Milroe didn't have a great week. Wasn't terrible, but I think he didn't separate himself. And Jackson Dart, it's there for the taking if he wants to be QB3 or perhaps even higher, Rick.
I think he's not going to be past the other two.
Okay.
It's to me, he's QB3 right now, but I want to put you on the spot because
Yep.
I love to see you flop around like a dead fish
Squirm.
on the shore. Yeah. Is Kyle McCord, the way he performed, does he have a chance to potentially be QB3?
So my latest updated QB rankings post All-Star game is Cam, Shador, Jackson Dart, Kyle McCord's 4, Jalen Milroe is 5. I have them all. I have the last 3 guys in day 2 right now.
So
yes, to answer your question, Kyle McCord can be number 3, and I might make him number 1 if you keep pushing me.
Well, it's about time you got off the schneid. You put yourself out there. Yeah, make a bold prediction. That's what we do.
That's what I'm throwing.
Business.
Throwing the gauntlet down on Kyle McCord. That's where I draw the line, apparently. No, he measures 6'2.5", so that's taller than I thought, because I thought he might be a little shorter than that. I think he's 215 or whatever. He's a better athlete than we give him credit for, and his arm's good enough. So I'm okay with him as a day 2 guy. Is day 2 too rich for you yet on Kyle?
I'm iffy on that still.
Okay.
Although he had, I went back and before this podcast, I went back and watched more games on him. Watched him in the Miami game. His footwork is way better than it was at Ohio State. And he had a lot more savvy or swag to his game than he did at Ohio State. Yeah. And Meeks, I'm still not totally sold on. I understand the ability to go up and make some contested catches. I still think he rounds some of his cuts. I think he's a build-up speed guy. I don't think he's as burner as everybody says. Now, I don't know if he was blowing by people down at the East-West practice or not.
He looked like a different player at Shrine than he did on tape. I think you're exactly right.
But I didn't see the burst or acceleration that everybody was talking about. And then your little Kobe Bryant, who is a tough little hombre now.
Oh, good.
But he's fun to watch, and he's quick twitch, and he'll battle you. But, $160 is not a recipe for success in the NFL, especially just the heart is there, the chip on his shoulder is there, the athleticism is there, even the ball skills are there.
Yeah.
I think I read where he's had maybe, 4 or 5 interceptions, 6, something like that over the last 2 years, or 4 each of the past 2 years. So
let me tell you this. So when I interviewed him, he had 4 last year, and I said, hey, the first thing I said to him was, I like that he had 4 interceptions, but he didn't have any drops. And the first thing he said was, I had 3 the year before, and I'm still mad about it. And I think he had 3 interceptions with 3 drops in 2023, and he was still fuming over that. So, yeah, he has ball skills, and he has a long memory when it comes to that, a short memory when it comes to everything else, it feels like.
Yeah, so he's a fun player to watch. It's just, and I don't know, sometimes that lack of height, even though he's 5'11", it helps that he has it sound like his wingspan and arm length were more than adequate enough for a shorter corner. Just reading some of the stuff that I was reading on, and then watching him, he does play bigger than his size. It's just, everybody's going to have the Forbes effect, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Emmanuel Forbes. So he had 31 7/8-inch arms, which is long enough, 76-inch wingspan. I don't know if that floats your boat or not.
That floats my boat.
What did you think of this player. What do you think about Jack Besh on day 2?
I still think he's a possession guy, tough as nails. I think that the feel-good story and what he did down at the Senior Bowl after the tragic death of his brother in New Orleans tells you how mentally tough this kid is and what a winner this kid is. And I don't want to say that if he goes in the 3rd round, because he showed up every day down at the Senior Bowl, in my opinion.
And the game, which you take seriously.
And the game, which I take seriously. Is he one of those guys that may not be the fastest, but knows how to play the game? Could he be potentially?
Say it.
Puka Nacua?
Yeah! I knew it. Puka Spielman 2.0.
There could be some rumblings there of that, because I remember we tried to put a bunch of holes in Puka Nacua,
How'd that
couldn't
work?
run, was hurt all the time. Well, he's still hurt all the time, but I
Plays
think
through it though.
he sometimes. But he is big and he knows how to play the game. I think this kid has some unique instinctual traits that you look for the position.
So Cooper Kupp has indicated that the Rams want to trade him. Can you have two Pukas on the team and be successful? If you trade, if you draft Jack Besh,
You still have to have some speed somewhere.
Yeah.
I think
you got Tutu Atwell.
yeah. We talked about it. Yeah, take Besh and then throw in Zay Johnson. You'll be rolling.
Wait, Tez.
I
was trying to do the math. Yeah, all right. Tez John. Okay, that's some juice there. Tez and Tutu add up to 300 pounds, and then you have two 210-pound wide receivers. All right. In terms of guys that we need to see more from, Jalen Milroe is probably at the top of the list. What do we need to see from him? Does he have to throw at the combine, or is the interviews more important?
I think the interviews. I think the pro day. I think that the thing, and even down there, just looks like the processing. There's some click missing, and I don't know if you can get that. I mean, everybody knows how strong his arm is, and you got an opportunity because he did go down there and participate, that you got to see his arm live. If you didn't get an opportunity to see it in person, it'd be great to see him throw because, like I said, love to see everybody compete at the combine. But if they don't, I think people at least got a live look at his arm, and he does have a live arm. The ball comes off. It's just a little bit, and he was better deep ball throwing, but I still really question the accuracy at the short and intermediate levels. And I don't want to say it's as bad. Well, is it Will Levis like from always throwing a fastball? And can he put, some layer the ball in there with some velocity? I don't know. I guess I'm asking you that.
Well, the other concerning thing is he came in at 6'0", I didn't realize he was that short. And then his hands are sub 9 inches. Any of those
Remember
things?
that old commercial, Burger King hands? The guy that had the really tiny, couldn't hold the Whopper. Claire, do you remember that commercial? He had little tiny Burger King hands.
I don't know if Claire remembers that one.
I don't know.
Well, you're going to have to Google that. Look at the guy that's trying to hold a Whopper, and he has little tiny Burger King hands. And when you see it, Claire, you'll start laughing out loud.
Is the hands or the height more concerning? Or neither?
Hands.
You don't care?
Hands. Okay. Because cold weather, wet ball, all that stuff. I mean, those guys that have those long fingers and long hands, usually those guys, the weather does not affect them.
So that's one more thing that we got to figure out on the to-do list for Jalen Milroe. And look, I hope he goes down to Indy and balls out. But
what's going to make his mark is if he runs fast at Indy, that could be like Justin Fields. I was at that pro day and watched him come screaming down that 40 yards.
Oh, he did run the 40 at his pro day?
Oh, yeah, he did. And he ran it fast.
And look at him now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, should be a cautionary tale, but you're like excited about it. If he runs a 4.38, you're going to be.
I'm just saying, if you know your weaknesses, but what is your superpower? So if you can run as fast, he's going to be the fastest quarterback in this draft. But if you can emphasize that in a workout or at the combine, then all of a sudden that flips the switch on some of the. I don't want to say you overlook it, but at least at least I know this dude can run.
He can do this.
He can run on tape.
I don't know if you have any other guys in terms of you want to see more from, but one other guy that pops in my mind is Oregon left tackle Josh Connerly Jr. He came down. They used him a lot on the right side, and as you noted in the one-on-one drills, Mike Green had the rep of the week, but Josh was on the right side. He also had a not great rep against Oladejo on the right side in one-on-ones. Again, not the end of the world, but what do we need to see from him?
He's a left tackle, yeah. And it's great to, but that's.
Are you going to leave him the left side?
Oh, God, yeah.
Okay, they're just doing it just to see?
Yeah, okay. Because what if he is a backup his first year and he has to be a swing tackle?
Okay.
So you're looking at all that. But it was night and day watching him on the left side compared to watching him on the right side. And I think the kid doesn't get enough credit because he has some grit and toughness in the run game right now.
Yeah.
So I think the sky's the limit, but put him at left tackle and keep him there. I think that's his best position. The guy that I think that came there and got sick and I was excited to see, was the right tackle from Missouri.
He got sick. Okay.
Yeah.
Armand Imbu.
Yeah, so he did not participate because he got sick.
That's
So
too
he
bad.
left. Yeah, but that was the guy I was anxious to see. So he's going to have some stuff to prove because there's been some buzz about him. Whether he's the right tackle or does he move inside the guard?
So 6'3" and 6'8", 332. He get measured. 34-inch arms, 81-inch wingspan, and he's only 20 years old, Rick. Woo! That sounds like a first-round pick to me.
He is a little raw technically, but I really like his grit and toughness that he plays. And I don't think he would have any issues if someone slid him in as a guard. But it would be nice to see him at guard, maybe even see him snap at center if they were going to do that. The guy that I was disappointed in that didn't show up was Booker from Alabama, because he's supposed to be the top, maybe interior offensive lineman, but he's only seen him at left guard at Alabama.
Yep.
And if he would have went down there and practiced and got some guard reps, but also got some center reps, that could have potentially added value for him. So some of these guys have elected not to show up, especially some of these offensive linemen. I thought they did themselves a disservice.
Yeah, Zion Johnson showed up after playing left tackle at BC out of need, and he moved inside and played center and guard all week, I believe.
Graham Barton.
Graham Barton's a great example. Is Graham Barton a good comp? I think it's going to be a new comp for Gray Zabel. You okay with that, or is that?
I already use that, so please, yeah. If you want to use my comps because your comps are so horrible,
I'm going to go with Trent Williams then.
I have a feeling our time is about ready to expire.
Our time is about ready to expire. That's what Claire. That's what Rick says when someone's about to get fired. So let's expire our time.
Claire, did you look up the Burger King hands yet or not?
Working, man.
No, I gotta pay attention. Make sure you guys are looking good.
Yikes, that's a tough.
Yeah, well. You just worry if you're watching this to the left side of the screen. I think you're on the left side, right?
Yeah, sure. Why not? If you don't know which one to look at, I don't know what to tell you. All right, Rick, that's a wrap. That's all we got. Episode 220, almost at 225. We're doing 2 weeks, and then we're going to go to 3 weeks whenever Debo gets back from his latest vacation. If the Eagles win, maybe we'll go to 3 weeks sooner than that. But that's all I got. So for my guy Rick, for producer Claire, I'm Ryan Wilson. Thanks to all you guys who watch, listen, and comment. We'll be back Thursday. Great news, Rick. Going to do a mock draft on the show live, so come back for that.
Yeah, wait. Claire, are you producing Thursday? Do you know yet?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. Make sure we talk about Burger King hands. That's your assignment.
Hit the button, Claire.